is Claudia. For my activity, I decided to make a video about energy transfer from species to species. This primarily covers our 3.2 and 3.3 portions of the textbook. I kind of combined them and put them in my own words and added different visual images that helped me understand it to in turn hopefully help more people understand it. I did combine them just because I think they piggyback a lot off of each other, especially because of the energy use. So that's kind of the plan there. But yeah, let's get started. Okay, to start off with this slide, I wanted to talk just about what energy is and what we have defined it as. I think it'll give us a solid foundation. Ultimately, any sort of food chain at its core is just a transfer of energy. Energy is a heat transfer that determines the ability to do work. It also has many forms, such as heat, light, electricity, and chemical energy, which are where we will see it primarily. When talking about energy, we have to consider intensity. So, energy can primarily be split up into two main categories, kinetic and potential. The easiest way for me to remember and what I imagine is imagine a kid playing with a soccer ball, or he's about to kick the ball. The moment right before he hits the ball, it's potential energy. It's yet to happen. As the energy could occur, but it's yet to do so. However, the second his foot hits the ball, that energy and the ball begins rolling, we're seeing energy being transferred and becoming kinetic, as the energy from his foot is now onto the ball and it has now become kinetic energy. Now, for today, we're primarily looking at chemical energy or energy that is stored in chemical compounds. So think the energy in our food, which is known as calories, or energy that's work, which is known as joules. So that's primarily what we're going to look at for this lesson when we think about a food chain and energy and how it applies to that. We also have to think about the laws of thermodynamics when applied to energy. So there is two. There's the first and second law. The first law states that energy is conserved and cannot be created or destroyed. It can only be transformed. And the second law kind of piggybacks onto that and saying as energy is transferred or transformed, less energy is available, aka it'll dissipate with time. So when we think about energy in the food chain, a lot of the times we'll think about animals, but the energy has to start somewhere, and that would be with our producers and photosynthesis. But because energy cannot be created, the plant is not just magically creating energy. It is going through the process of photosynthesis and getting energy from the sun. It does this with its chlorophyll. It absorbs the light energy and creates high energy compounds that are then able to become cellular metabolisms. Organisms that photosynthesize become our producers, as they do not get energy from other living organisms. This helps us move into our third point of species to ecosystems. Knowing that we know about energy and how it's transferred, we can see how it applies to our ecosystem. Before we fully dive in, we need to have a vocab check of just the words that we need to know when talking about ecosystems. So we've talked about our ecosystem, and that is all living things and non-living factors in our habitat. So if you see in the picture, it is our biggest circle, so it covers the most. It's living and non-living factors that are in our habitat. Then we go to community, which is all living populations in a location. Population, which is then under it, is the collection of species in a certain area. And then species are the one unique organisms. Knowing these will allow us to continue our lesson with a bit more clarity. Okay, to start off, we're going to be talking about our food webs. Food webs help explain what an ecosystem's energy is doing. The base of a food web will always be photosynthesis, as it is our producers. So these are green plants, algae. Their energy comes from the sun and then develops outwards. When looking at our food webs, we're going to look at productivity and biomass primarily. Productivity is the amount of biomass produced in any given area, and biomass is the amount of organic matter available at any given time. Primary productivity is photosynthesis because it's the basis of all other growth, again, how it grows outwards. We then move on to secondary productivity, which is created by biomass from organisms that eat plants, aka consumers. So our food web can often look a little bit overwhelming because we don't fully know where it started. So it starts with food chains. So in an ecosystem, we have producers, like photosynthesis and our plants, but then we have consumers that feed off of other living organisms. Organisms that eat producers, so eating plants, like rabbits, those are our primary consumers. And then organisms that eat primary consumers are then secondary consumers, and so on. So it'll keep going. So in this picture, We have our producers, which is our grass, then we have our primary consumers, our grasshopper, secondary, mouse, and then tritary is our owl. Now, while some consumers feed on one single species, most of them consume from multiple food sources. These food chains, like the one pictured, eventually become interconnected, which form the web that we saw because is so much of a crossover. So, in managing all these producers and consumers, their feeding status is seen as a trophic level, the movement of energy through the ecosystem. So, it's how energy is moving and dissipating from previous levels, like we mentioned earlier. So I hope that kind of called back to what we were talking about earlier about the laws of thermodynamics. The laws apply when we think about energy through the ecosystem. As energy moves up the chain, so producers, primary consumers, secondary, we lose more and more energy. This is because of the second law of thermodynamics. The energy will begin to dissipate. About 1/10 of the energy from every trophic level is repeated at the highest energy. So if we look on the chart that we have, we're at 100% energy use at primary producers. That will then become 0.01 once we hit the top part of the pyramid. So energy will slowly go less and less. Ultimately, I wanted to combine these lessons because I felt that learning about energy and how it operates is crucial in understanding how it works in the wild. Within a conservation perspective, it's also important because it allows us to better understand the needs of the ecosystem. If we think about what animals are normally most likely extinct or endangered, we'll start seeing those animals that are higher up on our energy pyramid. And normally there is also just less of them as a whole because they have less energy to go off of. So this is really an important base to base other lessons on conservation off of. Thank you.